She was the most unnoticed monster in the world. Though she knew children couldn't see her, she still insisted on hanging upside down from a tree to scare them. She thought no one would ever be able to see her until the day she met a boy named Natsum. At that moment, Natsum was being bullied by his peers, taunted with stones, and called an orphan child a monster. Unable to stand the bullying, the monster swung her fist, knocking down a few insects, scaring the children into fleeing. She stood in the tree, laughing loudly, unaware that Natsum was staring right at her. By the time the monster realized, Natsum had already disappeared. To confirm whether the boy could really see her, she blocked his path, intending to scare him. After Natsum punched her, the monster understood his uniqueness. From then on, she followed him everywhere, always appearing in strange places. Natsum's fear became the monster's greatest joy. Every day, she searched the town for Natsum, but in the process, she began to understand this boy better. He was considered a weirdo by his classmates, born without parents, and had a habit of making up monster stories to frighten others. The monster hadn't realized that Natsum could see beings like her, making him an outcast among his peers. She wanted to help Natsum become more alert, but when he asked why she followed him, the monster didn't understand human emotions. However, when she saw the lonely figure of Natsum walking away, she didn't dare follow him. She couldn't comprehend the hidden stories of this human child. When Natsum returned to his foster uncle's home, he heard the same old words from yet another uncle who didn't want him. Natsum had been passed around between relatives for a long time, and now he was being abandoned again. Perhaps out of guilt, his uncle handed Natsum a worn-out coat that his own son had once worn. This was the first gift Natsum had ever received from his relatives. Though it smelled a little musty, young Natsum loved it, hugging it as he fell asleep, even wearing it out in the summer and proudly boasting that it was a gift from his uncle. However, the monster appeared again at that moment, causing his classmates to stumble and ruining Natsum's favorite coat. Finally, Natsum couldn't take it anymore and shouted at the monster to go away. After that, Natsum stopped walking along that path, as if intentionally avoiding her. The monster, though, started to miss the old days. She transformed into a kitten and went to the place Natsum used to spend time. There, on the grass, she saw Natsum's figure again. Natsum didn't recognize the kitten as the monster, and he hugged it. For the first time, the monster felt the warmth of a human. Natsum suddenly envied the kitten, thinking that if he could live independently, perhaps he wouldn't be treated like a burden by his uncles. Natsum had always been such a kind boy. The monster was deeply touched by human emotions for the first time and wanted to stay by Natsum's side forever. But then, fate intervened. Natsum's uncle came to take him away, and when the monster saw his aunt, dressed provocatively, she realized that Natsum probably wouldn't have a happy future. However, she lacked the ability to follow Natsum to the distant place, and this was the regret of their unspoken farewell. Afterward, the monster waited by the big tree for Natsum to return. Seasons passed, but she never saw Natsum again. Gradually, she became accustomed to living alone. Sometimes, when she saw a child fall, she would turn into a kitten to comfort them. But a child as gentle as Natsum was one of a kind. The more she thought about it, the more entranced she became, unaware that Natsum had found her. After many years, Natsum, now a young man, still remembered the monster from his childhood. Though he hadn't understood her actions back then, he finally realized her kindness. In that moment of embrace, Natsum understood something. The little kitten from his childhood had been the monster in disguise. All the monsters had been waiting for Natsum's grandmother, but only she had been waiting for Natsum.